Hidden in plain sight, four UNESCO treasures that changed the world but lost the spotlight. One contains stone structures built 6,000 years before writing was invented, challenging everything we thought we knew about primitive societies. Why do some wonders become globally famous while others fade into footnotes? The answer isn't simply about their historical importance. Politics, colonial perspectives, and media representation have shaped which achievements we celebrate and which we ignore. Let's uncover what's been kept from us. You've seen Petra's iconic facade in Indiana Jones and countless travel photos, but behind that famous red sandstone treasury lies a secret far more impressive than any Hollywood adventure. While tourists snap photos of its carved columns, the true genius of Petra remains largely invisible. A sophisticated water engineering system that transformed an inhospitable desert into a thriving civilization. When you think about it, building a city in a place with less than 15 centimeters of annual rainfall seems almost suicidal. Yet the Nabataeans not only survived here, but flourished, creating a bustling metropolis that housed approximately 20,000 people at its peak. How did they accomplish what should have been impossible? The answer lies beneath your feet when you visit. The Nabataeans developed an intricate network of conduits, dams, and cisterns that captured every precious droplet of rain. This wasn't just basic water collection, it was a masterpiece of ancient engineering that modern experts still study with amazement. They carved channels directly into the surrounding rock faces, creating a dual-purpose system that simultaneously protected the city from destructive flash floods while harvesting that same water for later use. What's even more fascinating is that what you see when you visit Petra today is literally just the tip of the archaeological iceberg. About 85% of this ancient wonder remains underground and unexplored. That famous treasury building that appears in all the postcards? It's just one small structure in a massive complex spanning over 100 square miles. Imagine what secrets still lie beneath the desert sands, waiting to be discovered. The Nabataeans weren't just brilliant engineers. They were savvy entrepreneurs who recognized Petra's strategic potential despite its seemingly impractical location. This rocky outpost became a crucial trading post precisely because of where it sat, at the crossroads of major routes connecting Arabia, Egypt, and the Mediterranean. Through these markets flowed spices, textiles, and precious metals, generating immense wealth for the civilization. They transformed a geographical disadvantage into an economic powerhouse. The city's hidden water system made all of this possible. While other desert settlements struggled during dry periods, Petra's inhabitants had reliable access to stored water year-round. The Nabataeans constructed ceramic pipes to distribute this precious resource throughout the city, created dams to control water flow, and built cisterns to store thousands of gallons for the dry season. This wasn't just survival, it was desert prosperity engineered through ingenious solutions. Yet despite all this brilliance, Petra eventually faded from Western consciousness. As trade routes shifted away from the city, its importance diminished, and it remained largely forgotten to the outside world for centuries. The local Bedouin knew of its existence, but it wasn't until 1812 that a Swiss explorer named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt rediscovered Petra for the Western world. Even then, his claims about finding a lost city were met with skepticism until he provided detailed accounts and sketches as evidence. What's perhaps most remarkable about Petra's water system is its enduring relevance. Modern engineers studying these ancient techniques have gained valuable insights that can be applied to contemporary water conservation challenges in arid regions. In an era of climate change and increasing water scarcity, these 2,000-year-old solutions offer inspiration for sustainable water management practices today. The Nabataeans weren't just solving their immediate problems, they were pioneering approaches that remain relevant 2 millennia later. Pakistan's Great Wall, the mysterious purpose of Ranikot Fort. While Petra amazes us with its ancient water engineering, another hidden marvel awaits discovery halfway across the world. In Pakistan's Sindh province stands a colossal stone structure that should be world famous, yet remains virtually unknown to most travelers. Ranikot Fort, often called the Great Wall of Pakistan, stretches an astonishing 31 kilometers through the rugged Kurthar Hills, making it one of the largest fort complexes on the planet. What's truly baffling isn't just its massive scale, but how such an impressive structure has managed to stay hidden from the global spotlight. While China's Great Wall welcomes millions of visitors annually, Ranikot receives barely a trickle of tourism despite its comparable length and historical significance. Even more puzzling is that historians continue to debate the fundamental question of why anyone would build such a massive structure in this particular location. The fort's construction reveals sophisticated engineering that worked with, rather than against, nature. Its walls snake across the landscape in an irregular pattern, perfectly following the natural contours of the Kurthar Hills. In some sections, these walls tower up to 30 feet high, built from massive stone bricks that fit together with remarkable precision. The entire fortification encloses a vast area of approximately 20 square miles, essentially creating a massive walled region rather than simply protecting a single settlement. 4 main gates serve as the fort's control points: San Gate, Amri Gate, Shah Pere Gate, and Mohan Gate, each strategically positioned to regulate access to the interior. The San Gate remains particularly well preserved, offering visitors who make the journey spectacular panoramic views from its elevated position. These access points weren't randomly placed, but formed a carefully considered system of controlled entry points around the fort's massive perimeter. But who actually built this enormous structure? The official attribution goes to the Talpur dynasty in the 19th century, but archaeological evidence has begun challenging this timeline. Some researchers believe portions of Ranikot may date back much further, possibly as far as the 4th century CE. This uncertainty adds another layer to the fort's enigmatic nature, suggesting a complex history with multiple construction phases spanning potentially thousands of years. The most compelling mystery, however, is why anyone would construct such an enormous fortification in this relatively remote location. Unlike most major defensive structures throughout history, Ranikot doesn't protect any obvious city center, valuable resource deposits, or strategic trade route. Its location seems almost deliberately isolated from the political and economic centers of its time. This peculiar placement has left historians scratching their heads for generations. Recent archaeological work has begun uncovering clues that might finally explain Ranikot's purpose, and the answer might overturn our understanding of what this massive structure actually represents. While traditionally viewed as a military fortification, emerging evidence suggests Ranikot may have served a fundamentally different purpose. Some researchers now propose that rather than functioning primarily as a defensive structure, it may have been created as a ceremonial site or symbolic boundary marker. This theory would explain several of Ranikot's unusual characteristics. Its walls don't follow the most efficient defensive pattern, but instead embrace the natural landscape in an almost artistic fashion. The enclosed area is far larger than would be practical to defend with the military technology of any era. and its remote location makes more sense if its purpose was ceremonial or symbolic rather than practical. Local folklore adds yet another dimension to the mystery, with some traditions suggesting the massive walls were built not to keep human enemies out, but to contain malevolent spirits believed to inhabit the region. While this explanation might seem fanciful to modern ears, it highlights how Ranikot could have served cultural and spiritual purposes beyond pure military defense. What makes Ranikot truly special is how it challenges our assumptions about ancient structures. We often assume impressive monuments must have had clear practical purposes, but Ranikot suggests our ancestors sometimes created massive works for reasons that transcended simple utility, perhaps establishing ceremonial spaces or cultural boundaries that carried deep significance now lost to time. The Lion's Rock, Sigiriya's advanced water systems, and artistic legacy. From the haunting mysteries of Ranikot Fort, we now journey to a site where ancient engineering reaches literally new heights. Imagine constructing not just a fortress, but an entire palace complex with functioning water gardens on top of a 200-meter rock formation, all while using nothing but the natural force of gravity to power your hydraulic system. This isn't science fiction, it's Sigiriya, Sri Lanka's Lion Rock, a testament to 5th century ingenuity that remains woefully underappreciated on the world stage. While names like the Colosseum and the pyramids roll off our tongues when discussing ancient engineering marvels, Sigiriya achieved comparable technological sophistication, yet remains virtually unknown to most of the world. This massive rock fortress stands as a perfect fusion of natural and constructed elements, showcasing a level of planning that would be impressive even by today's standards. The story of Sigiriya begins with a royal power grab. King Kashyapa I, who ruled from 477 to 495 Common Era, seized the throne from his father and transformed this imposing rock formation into an impenetrable royal residence. But Kashyapa wasn't satisfied with merely building a fortress. He envisioned a paradise in the sky, complete with defensive structures, elaborate gardens, and stunning artistic achievements that would immortalize his reign. The true genius of Sigiriya lies in its water management system. Consider the challenge. How do you create lush gardens and functional fountains atop a 200-meter rock without modern pumps or electricity? The answer reveals remarkable engineering insight. Kashyapa's builders designed an intricate network of underground conduits connecting to a large artificial lake south of the rock. This system captured rainwater at the summit and distributed it throughout the complex using nothing but gravity, an achievement so sound in its design that the fountains still activate during rainy seasons today, 15 centuries after their creation. What's particularly fascinating about these water gardens is their historical significance. They represent some of the oldest landscaped gardens in the world, predating many of Europe's famous gardens by over a millennium. The design isn't just functional, it's deliberately aesthetic, featuring symmetrical layouts that blend practical water management with artistic sensibility. These weren't merely decorative features, they served practical purposes as well, cooling the air around the palace and supporting fragrant aquatic plants like lotus that enhanced the sensory experience of the royal residence. Beyond its engineering achievements, Sigiriya houses a remarkable artistic legacy. The western face of the rock is adorned with what are known as the Heavenly Maidens frescoes, a collection of striking murals depicting beautiful women adorned with intricate jewelry and garments. These paintings demonstrate a sophisticated artistic tradition that has somehow survived since the 5th century. In the 1980s, these irreplaceable cultural treasures required careful restoration, led by Italian mural artist Luciano Maranzi, who meticulously studied the original materials and techniques to preserve these fading masterpieces for future generations. What makes Sigiriya truly exceptional is how it integrates natural landscape with human design. The complex wasn't imposed upon the environment, but rather designed to work in harmony with it. Archaeological assessments have revealed that Sigiriya represents a deliberate combination of symmetry and asymmetry in its layout, integrating natural and geometric forms in ways that demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of spatial relationships that was centuries ahead of its time. The builders of Sigiriya didn't just construct a palace, they created an entire urban complex that anticipated principles of landscape architecture and sustainable design that we consider modern concepts today. The site shows a remarkable understanding of the relationship between architecture, water management, and landscape design that wouldn't be matched in many parts of the world for centuries to come. How Göbekli Tepe shattered our understanding of civilization. While Sigiriya's ancient designers mastered the integration of nature and architecture, another archaeological site completely dismantles our fundamental understanding of human history. What if I told you that everything you learned about the birth of civilization, that agriculture enabled settlements, which then led to organized religion and monumental architecture, might be exactly backward? In southeastern Turkey lies Göbekli Tepe, a site that has forced archaeologists to rewrite textbooks about human history. In 1994, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt made a discovery that would shake the foundations of prehistoric archaeology. What he uncovered wasn't just another ancient settlement, but something far more revolutionary. Massive stone temples built between 9,500 and 8,000 BCE, predating Stonehenge by an astonishing 6,000 years, and the invention of writing by even longer. The most bewildering aspect? These structures weren't built by an advanced agricultural civilization with specialized labor and social hierarchies. They were constructed by what we've traditionally categorized as primitive hunter-gatherers, people who hadn't even developed pottery yet. The evidence at Göbekli Tepe is overwhelming. Imagine massive T-shaped pillars standing approximately 20 feet tall and weighing over 10 tons each, arranged in perfect circular formations. These aren't crude stone arrangements, but precisely cut and positioned monoliths with smooth, flat surfaces. The logistics alone are mind-boggling. How did people without metal tools, wheels, or even draft animals quarry, transport, and erect these enormous stones with such precision? Even more remarkable are the intricate reliefs covering these pillars. They feature detailed carvings of animals like foxes, lions, scorpions, and vultures, alongside abstract symbols that suggest a sophisticated symbolic language. This isn't basic cave art. It's organized, intentional communication created millennia before we thought humans had developed such capabilities. What's truly revolutionary about Göbekli Tepe isn't just its age or scale, but how it completely inverts our understanding of prehistoric human development. For generations, archaeologists taught that the sequence of civilization followed a logical path. First, humans developed agriculture, which led to permanent settlements, which enabled specialized labor, which eventually allowed for monumental construction projects and organized religion. But Göbekli Tepe shatters this narrative entirely. Here we have monumental architecture and evidence of complex religious practices thousands of years before the agricultural revolution. This has given rise to the religion-first theory. The provocative idea that spiritual gatherings may have been the catalyst that brought nomadic hunter-gatherers together in the first place and potentially even motivated the transition to settled farming communities. Think about the implications. These supposedly primitive hunter-gatherers organized themselves in sufficient numbers and with enough coordination to build these massive structures without the hierarchical societies we thought necessary for such projects. They possessed engineering knowledge to work with multi-ton stones, artistic ability to create complex symbolic imagery, and abstract thinking to develop religious concepts, all earlier than we ever imagined possible. What's particularly fascinating is how much remains unknown. Currently, only about 10% of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. Geophysical surveys indicate at least 20 more circular enclosures still hidden beneath the surface. Each new excavation season brings fresh revelations that further complicate our understanding of human prehistory. What other capabilities might these hunter-gatherers have possessed that we haven't yet discovered? The site wasn't even a permanent settlement. Evidence suggests people gathered here periodically, likely for religious ceremonies, then returned to their nomadic existence. This means hunter-gatherers traveled from potentially hundreds of kilometers away, all to participate in constructing and using these ceremonial spaces, a level of social organization previously thought impossible without agricultural surpluses and permanent settlements. Göbekli Tepe forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Our ancestors weren't gradually evolving from primitive to advanced in a neat, linear fashion. They were fully capable of complex thought, sophisticated organization, and monumental engineering feats thousands of years earlier than we've acknowledged. The hunter-gatherers who built Göbekli Tepe weren't primitive at all. They were remarkably advanced in ways we're still struggling to understand. The politics of wonder. Why some sites capture global attention while others don't. The brilliance of Göbekli Tepe should place it among the most famous archaeological sites in the world, yet most people couldn't point to it on a map. Did you know that a single Hollywood movie elevated Petra to global fame while equally impressive sites remain in obscurity? This stark contrast reveals something troubling about how we decide which ancient wonders deserve our attention, and it has very little to do with historical significance. The ancient wonders we collectively celebrate aren't necessarily the most impressive engineering feats or the most historically significant. Instead, our cultural spotlight is directed by forces that have nothing to do with objective historical value. Think about it. The Egyptian pyramids are instantly recognizable worldwide, while structures of comparable scale like Ranikot Fort remain virtually unknown to most people outside Pakistan. This selective memory isn't accidental. Western colonial perspectives fundamentally shaped early archaeology in the Middle East and Asia, often prioritizing sites that aligned with Greco-Roman or biblical narratives. Ancient achievements that didn't fit neatly into these Western historical frameworks were frequently relegated to footnotes or curiosities, regardless of their actual significance. This colonial lens still influences which sites receive funding for excavation, preservation, and promotion today. Modern geopolitics creates another powerful filter. Many remarkable archaeological sites remain inaccessible simply because they exist in regions deemed unsafe for Western tourists. Current travel advisories limit tourism to significant archaeological sites in countries like Pakistan and Turkey, affecting places like Ranikot Fort and Göbekli Tepe. These safety concerns, whether warranted or not, effectively erase these sites from public consciousness regardless of their historical importance. Popular media might be the most powerful force shaping our collective understanding of archaeological importance. Consider Petra's transformation after Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Before Harrison Ford dramatically rode through its narrow SIQ entrance, Petra was respected in archaeological circles, but hardly a household name. After the film's release, visitor numbers surged dramatically, with Petra receiving approximately 1.2 million visitors in 2019, a phenomenal increase that has little to do with new archaeological discoveries and everything to do with Hollywood exposure. This media attention creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Sites featured in popular films attract more visitors, which generates more tourism revenue, which funds better facilities, and more marketing, which attracts even more visitors. Meanwhile, equally impressive sites without that media spotlight remain underfunded and underdeveloped. The tourism infrastructure at Petra now contrasts sharply with less-known sites like Ranikot Fort, which lacks commercial tourism facilities and remains largely unexplored despite its comparable historical significance. Political instability adds another layer of obscurity to many archaeological treasures. The Syrian civil war has rendered numerous significant archaeological sites effectively inaccessible for years. These places haven't diminished in historical importance. They've simply disappeared from public consciousness because they can't be visited, photographed, or featured in travel documentaries. Even the language of archaeology itself can diminish certain achievements. When Western archaeologists describe non-Western sites, subtle biases often creep in. Structures built by ancient Europeans are architectural marvels, while equally impressive structures from other cultures might be described merely as interesting or unusual. These linguistic choices, repeated in textbooks and documentaries, subtly shape which sites we collectively value. Experts increasingly recognize that media representation plays a crucial role in shaping public understanding of archaeological significance. The pattern is clear across all the sites we've explored. Those that receive media attention thrive, while those ignored by filmmakers and documentarians remain in obscurity regardless of their historical importance. What other remarkable achievements might remain undiscovered or underappreciated due to these systemic biases? For every Göbekli Tepe that eventually receives recognition, albeit limited, how many equally significant sites remain overlooked because they're in countries with travel warnings, lack Hollywood exposure, or don't align with Western historical narratives? As we've journeyed through these remarkable sites, one thing becomes clear. Our relationship with historical wonders isn't just about the past, it's a reflection of our present priorities. Consider the conservation challenges at Petra, where UNESCO has documented erosion, flooding, and questionable restoration work, all stemming from the delicate balance between preservation and tourism demands. This struggle reveals how our appreciation can literally wear away the very wonders we celebrate. Meanwhile, sites like Sigiriya demonstrate that ancient ingenuity often surpasses our expectations. Its hydraulic systems, with canals, lakes, dams, and water pumps that continue functioning today, stand as one of our best preserved examples of urban planning genius, yet remain relatively unknown in popular consciousness. What's the real wonder here? Perhaps it's not just the stones and structures themselves, but our selective cultural memory, how we choose which achievements to celebrate and which to forget. These overlooked masterpieces remind us that human brilliance has always existed across all cultures and eras, waiting for us to recognize it beyond our familiar narratives. The true wonder may be what we still haven't discovered about our shared human story.